welcome back to the DP World Tour picks and bets. Skylar, Hoak joined here with Tom Jacobs. The DP World Tour is back upon us. Tom, how we doing?
Yeah, good. I think this week caught me off guard. I'm pretty sure we thought we were away for longer than this. Didn't we say it was like 6 or 7 weeks? And then all of a sudden this must not have been like fully on the schedule.
I never know, man. It's touch and go every time with this. I mean, this is getting close to I guess it's the lead in to the really good stretch run that we get in September and October on the DP World Tour. But I've always been a fan of the Danish golf events, well supported always by the locals.
Yeah, and I think it's as I say, it's a nice warm up. It's nice to get the field back together. There are some interesting names here this week. There's some good support from the regulars. There's a couple of people being parachuted in, so it's intriguing. I think we both talked about this before we come on though. Like, it just feels so tough to try and really put a pin on anyone. Feel so confident at the moment, but I guess that's our challenge and one that we'll take in our stride.
Yeah, absolutely the difficult part of it. I mean, not any lead-in form from basically 75% of the field. I mean, a few popped down to the Hotel Planner Tour for some of the Scottish events there. I mean, we did have the crossover PGA Tour events where we got actually, our first DP World Tour winner of those was Stefan getting his win. I mean, he jumped immediately onto the PGA Tour. I don't think he's made a cut in any of those events, but will be a card-holding member next, which is super cool for him. Stole that win from Todd Clements, who looked like we were going to have, at least one of the two were going to take it. So good for the DP World Tour representation there. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. It just makes it for maybe a little bit higher speculation than even the typical DP World Tour event give us. And then you throw on top of us a brand new course that has only been seen on the Nordic Golf Tour, the Echo Tour, and just a lot of at least thought you can just put into hopefulness of how the week's going to shake out.
Yeah, I think also just talking about kind of like the representation of the DP World Tour, I don't think we've caught up since the Open Championship, right? And I know it's a bit longer term, but like Ryan Fox doing the DP World Tour proud by stepping up and hitting those couple of shots that he did. And then just looking like through by the way, that's completely underselling what an amazing week he had. But the two final shots that he hit that sealed the deal was amazing to take it from Cam Young. But just looking at the FedEx Cup standings, right? We obviously Ryan Fox we've just talked about, but above him in the FedEx Cup, Christopher Reitan 18th, Alex Fitzpatrick 19th. Just to speak to the amazing seasons they've had. Obviously, Bob's been there a little while now, but he was 32nd. Nikolai Højgaard 32nd. Aaron Rai 35th. Hisatsune 43rd. Alex Noren 46th. These are a lot of players that have kind of had a few years out there, right? But still come from the foundation of DP World Tour. And you've got Jordan Smith 64th and Matty Schmid 69th as well. So kind of a decent representation for the DP World Tour into this year's FedEx Cup. I cannot tell you how Matty Schmid and I guess good run at the major, but like Matty Schmid and Patrick Rogers made the final 70, but they're there. But good to see people like Jordan Smith. Like I think we sneakily thought Jordan Smith would do okay and be solid, and that's kind of what he has been, right? He's not been spectacular, but solid. So kudos to those guys for making their way, on the PGA Tour. I know some of them have kind of been doing it for a couple of years now, but gives hope to these guys that make the step up this year, I think.
Oh, 100%. I thought from a standpoint, this is probably one of our better classes. We felt comfortable with. We definitely have, I wouldn't even say pushback relative. I mean, we'll have some stars come out of this one with Chichara, who's in the field this week too. I think Jarvis can settle in pretty decent like he did in those final couple events. But I mean, this is where the kind of the butter is bred for some of these guys on the back end, right? Is Byrne going to get back to the PGA Tour? Can Lindell be the guy there? Bradbury, who I'd be super excited to get a year with his profile there in the States. So when these guys can kind of jump from 30th or so and basically up with a really good month, it makes for a lot of good golf for it. And I mean, I'm always hopeful for so many on these right weeks that they can get it. And proven point, like Ryan Fox, and obviously, he's had a career of that. But Wrighton stepping in, you mentioned there's just been a lot of upside, and we'll get a lot of these guys to trickle back. A few of them representing their home country: Rasmus Højgaard, Thorbjørn Olsen this week. Nikolai's obviously in the playoffs, so don't have him. But what are your overtaking thoughts on the course this week? Any thoughts looking into Great Northern as of now?
Yeah, I think it's been very, very dictated by the weather. He looked quite a wide range of scoring. It was up between 2 under and 14 under, I think it was. So it is going to entirely depend on how much wind we get. I guess you would favour longer hitters, but I think that's true of any golf course. If there's less risk, there's plenty of water about. So I do think you have to be relatively strategic. So I've tended just to stick with, again, the lead-in form is sparse, but I've tended to stick with guys that are in good form and people that have generally played well in Denmark in the past. I think despite, different, designers and things like that, I think coming back and knowing the country well is always a big factor. So I've kind of gone with the event form and the current form rather than trying to figure out the course too much because it could play completely differently at this level.
Oh, without a doubt. I do think based off of visual, the openness is what stood out to me compared to some of the courses they have played in the past years for this event. I mean, last year was a Bombers Fest. Not that, we can draw with it. I mean, it's tough to even the golfers who won on the Nordic Golf League haven't really profiled well at the bigger events. So we don't really even have a cross comparison of stat like availability to us. I mean, I think when it's open like that, maybe a potential shorter par 4 or 2 that could be reachable. I always like to bring out some distance in that, but I think you're exactly right. Especially with over the weekend, looks like weather could get a major factor. So I don't think we need to put all eggs in one basket, despite me loving to do so at times. But I think overarching, you look at the top of the field. I thought with that being a factor. And with recent play in Detroit, even a good Sunday yesterday at the Wyndham, I thought Rasmus Højgaard wasn't that disappealing as the favorite. I mean, deservingly 16-1. I mean, you put him there next to Chichara, RNP, who did play good basically a month ago. He had back-to-back really good events. I think coming to Europe was really good for him. Kind of saw what we've talked about. And then Aora and Lindell make up this top 5 crop, all between 16 and 20. But really, it was Rasmus, the only one that interested me.
Yeah, I think, look, if I was looking at the top of the market, I think Lindell is still going to be of interest. We just have that kind of doubt, right, of whether he can really step up and do it. But there's been better signs of that recently. 10th in Catalonia, 2nd at KLM, 6th in Italy, 13th in Germany, and then did okay for a couple of rounds in Scotland as well. Again, until we see it, we're probably all going to need a bit of convincing that we can get over the line. But yeah, I mean, look, I think Rasmus Højgaard's come good at the right time. He played pretty well at the Wyndham without really much, to take away from it. I think when you shoot 3 rounds of 6-8 or better, you're obviously playing reasonable golf. It's just that's not good enough at the Wyndham Championship. And as we say, he's shot us a 61 at the Rocket Classic. So definitely some form there. Nirgal Peterson maybe just losing a little bit of confidence after a couple of really good weeks. That's the slight concern, but will benefit from coming back and not too much to pick between the two of them. And then I think our long-standing comments on Aora stand in the sense of respect him as a player, but it's been a tough, 3 event stretch for him, missing the cut in each, and the price doesn't seem to differ. So I'm quite happy to move on from him in that range.
Yeah, I just think it just naturally, unless you want to take the stab with Skov Olesen at 28, which of the crop here, I think has had the best year. I mean, doesn't have the win like Lindbergh does, but I think I'm very fairly going into the 45-1 range and kind of beyond from there. I would start off, my card, if I'm going to go first here in this range, Alejandro Del Rey. And that's clearly repetitive from the way I've backed him over the years, and especially as of late. I think it was back-to-back, if not 3 times in a row for him. It was Scottish into Corrales is when I backed him. And if you look at, the way he played the Scottish, right, he ended up finishing 17th that week. And I thought he left a lot on the table there. He had a clear run into the top 10. He opened with a 72. So that week was a little frustrating because he came from 124th after the first round, 66, 65, 69, could have easily finished top 10, and then came in Corrales to me, which seemed like a surefire bet. Fifth at the halfway point, ended up just melting over the weekend. I think probably going from the Scottish into Corrales into a bunch of events is probably a lot of golf and a lot of travel and a lot of expectations of how things can change. And, it hasn't been, I would say, a good year for him, right? I mean, he has 2 top 10s, and then up until that point, I think it was 2 other top 20s on the season with I guess his made cut rate is probably up a little bit more year over year. But compared to the way, he got that win last year, basically his 2024 self was probably his best version. And we're starting to see those same flickers. If we see the distance prevailing, the irons firing, and a little bit more of that putter, it really was dire on the weekend for a short game. But I think Del Rey has, I back him in PGA Tour events. So I think he has a ceiling that is really strong. So I think at 45-1, I love ripping it here.
Yeah, I think, look, if we can overlook that sort of 3 event stretch between the Austria, the KLM, and the Italian, and really zoom out, you've got 29th for the Turkish Airlines, where he was inside the top 2 for the first 2 rounds. Catalonia, where he finished really strong, got better every day, finished 3rd. And then you look at his last 3 events, Sky, those top 20s in Germany and in Scotland, where, as you said, he handicapped by a slow start. It was actually 66, 65, 69, really strong finish there in Scotland. As you said, I think we were both on him at the Corrales, like strong start, and should be a perfect golf course for him. And, if this is what we believe it's been, then it should be the same case here. I guess the only thing is that we haven't got that the one thing, and it is only one thing because I'm nitpicking. Like, he hasn't got that kind of Danish form yet. But even then, first time he played in Denmark, he shot 66 in round 2, 65 in round 4, and then shot 66 in round 2 the other time. So he's shown it in flashes. Matured as a player since then. I really don't mind Del Rey. I think it's a good pick with the profile being big hitters if it is.
Yeah, if that comes out, I expect him to kind of repeat exactly what he's been playing and lead in form with it. And I think you're right to go with your kind of headline selection side by side odds wise, who we talked about earlier. Basically, it was taken from him. I think at one point Todd Clements had that win kind of wrapped up. It did feel like, I think it was like maybe after 9, it was like 3 or 4 clear, and it's like, oh man, this is his. It had to be such a pressure-filled moment, just being on an island in the lead, knowing all the chasers there, knowing the life changes. So Clements ended up finishing 2nd, but maybe hopefully keeps that momentum rolling.
Yeah, I think with Clements, look, 13th in Turkey, 7th at halfway, 11th in Italy, 9th going into the final round, 38th in Germany, 12th going into the final round. And as you say, the most, even with the ISCO, right, where he missed the cut, he started off really nicely inside the top 25 after round 1. And it's a couple of times now Clements is showing up on those PGA Tour events, right? And as you say, it was taken from him from the fact that Mazzoli had to shoot 6 under. And it's also fair to say that he probably should have done better on Sunday when you shoot a 71 in a low-scoring event. I just think as well with the iron play that he's been showing of late, I mean, he's been, inside the top 7 in 2 of his last 4 in approach. He was 22nd in Germany as well. Just one really bad iron week at the ISCO, which held him back. And then overall tee to green inside the top 6 at both the Italian Open and then the Corrales and fine in Germany as well. So just the way he's been hitting the ball, really encouraging. I think that's an evolution for Clements to be hitting the irons that well, right? To me, it's something that I kind of think of him as a strong player elsewhere. And then you look at his kind of Danish form as well. He was 62nd on debut, but he was 15th after round 1 and 26th going into the weekend. And then he finished 10th on his second start in the country as well. So just with the confidence that he's definitely going to be showing, the fact that he's kind of had a chance now to win the PGA Tour, and yes, it would have taken him a little while to get over that, but let's not forget he is a DP World Tour winner. He's won in Czech, at a time where probably a very similar situation to this, where you do think you can get the better at driving. And look, he's never been like a massive bomber or anything like that, but he can get it away off the tee when he needs to. He can gain on distance. I just think he's refined his game a little bit more this season. I think that's really encouraging. So I thought 45-1 about Clements with the form that he's coming in and the fact he's got a top 10 in Denmark already. I know he's fairly priced.
The thing about him too that's different than Del Rey is probably, well, I guess Del Rey if you include the Scottish potentially elements, but Clements I feel pretty good about in the wind too. I think he was top 10 at the Nexo last year, and then he was also really good at the Alfred Dunhill Link. So that might have been in 24 when they were playing and when he did well at those events. But I just think no, it was last year. It was 25. So I think a little bit more of the elements I would trust him too. So I think his Challenge Tour win was in Ireland as well. So I think there's some definite life to starting there. At the same number, we had questions kind of before if this is Chasey, is this Koiven and Thorbjornsen and Brennan like trying to get cute and go in with Caleb Surratt, as a selection here. I still like it. I think it's clearly difficult to handicap how what matters at these events at all, if anything. I think we've probably passed the point of caring about results, but also like to use it if it's a positive for us. I think that's probably the best assumption, right? Willing to throw it out, but if you find some life in something. And it was, to be fair, like kind of what gave me the encouragement on Herbert going into the Open Championship, who was kind of my big selection and had a chance there deep. So, I mean, Surratt, 5th at the United Kingdom, really, really good ball striking, 15th in New York last week, really good putting. He's built around distance. He can hit it a long way. I also encouraged, he did make the cut at the U.S. Open with a lot of distance to his name, and he missed the cut at the Open. However, both of those events he Open qualified for. So when golf has been consequential for him, he has shown up in both of those steps. Wasn't good in Sudal earlier this year, was good in Australia when he played in December. But I don't know what's next for any of these guys. They don't know what's next for them, I feel like, right? I mean, obviously rumors circulating, Live 2.0, everything. I would assume a lot of them would feel much better if they had status locked up somewhere versus head back to Q school if you're allowed, and Surratt can change it just like Tachara has changed it, over the last 12 months. So opportunity like that, 45-1 with a player who I've backed in the Links Championships before because he was really good as an amateur in them. So I think here he can show out with his driver and be okay in the wind.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at Surratt and it's a very small sample size. He's played 5 DP World Tour events. 2 of them are Dunhill Links. One was the Australian Open. One was the Open. Right, so kind of getting those conditions. I can't remember how breezy or otherwise it was at the Australian Open in December, but we know there's kind of links elements to Australia. Finished 8th there. It's been 32nd in the Dunhill Links. So I do get it. It just feels, and I did the same thing last week with Luke Clanton, right? It just feels like we just think it's going to happen now because they're all going to be inspired by their peers. And that, it just feels like that. Because on the face of it, if we were to strip his name out and just look long term, apart from obviously the UK event where he gained an approach off the tee, he's really struggled with his irons for a long time, right? And would we immediately sort of plug in, I don't know, Charles Howell III this week because he finished 7th? Do you know what I mean? Like, that's just a skeptical view of it. I think that there's nuances to it that he is a 22-year-old that's not played a lot in DP World Tour, and if he was given 30 starts, he probably would have won. Might be exactly like Chikara, right? He might, struggle really, on Live and then come and show out in this level of field. So jury's still out on him. I think I'm just going to wait and see, but I do respect why people would go there.
Yeah, yep, totally fair. I'm 65 for my next guy, so it's over to me, right?
Next one for me okay. Is Bernd Wiesberger at the opposite end of the scales to Surratt of I'll prove it to you first type thing, and that's what we're going with Bernd. We've been talking Bernd for a while now, and annoyingly wasn't on his win, but back-to-back 13th place finishes in Turkey and the Catalunya. Missed the cut at the BJ Championship, but then finished 4th in Austria, 21st at the KLM. Did miss the cut in Italy, but then 3rd in Germany, where he's a 54-hole leader. Then he opens for 65 in Scotland, leads after round 1, goes full Keegan Bradley, shoots a 78 in round 2. But this is just his event guy, like back-to-back wins in this tournament, 2019, 2021, and then finished 19th in 2024 as well. I'm just having a tough time ignoring Wiesberger when he's playing the way that he is. He's been, hitting the ball okay on approach. Tee to green, obviously slightly more steady overall than just isolates his approach play. That there has been a lot of kind of short game driven stuff in there. It hasn't all been kind of excellent ball striking that we have seen from Bernd Wiesberger over the years. And that's the only one concern, is that maybe it's not sustainable. But, he's won the China Open earlier this year. We tend to see more and more of these DP World Tour players, they get on a bit of a run, bundle these wins together with the current depth issue, right? I just thought he was a reasonable price for us, just given his history, and that, this is one of those ones, again, I don't really care whether he's in this course, favourite course. He's going to come to Denmark with a lot more confidence than he does in other places. 2 wins. So yeah, I thought the 4-6-1 was fair given the earlier season win and the recent third as well.
Yeah, I think it's a bummer that we kick ourselves that we didn't bet him when he did get that win, knowing you were on the other side too with Adrian that week. But yeah, I don't disagree any much with the logic outside of profile for kind of the way I've landed a little bit, but he clearly has overexceeded in other spots too when the fit wasn't naturally there. So,
but I think also, like, he just tells you, right, like, what he wants. He's won twice, in Singapore and China, and then goes and wins in China again this year. He's won twice in Denmark. Wouldn't be surprised if he does that again. Like, he won in Austria and then lost in the playoff there. He does tend to just repeat form in the same parts of the country. He's won the Scottish Open, then lost the Johnny Walker Championship in a playoff in Scotland. So just tends to play the same parts of the world really well. And for a player as wise as him in the situation he's in, he knows what's ahead of him if he does continue to play well. So I thought the price was fair.
Yep. I don't mind that. Okay. For me, 65-1. Oyhan Diamandagai. That's pretty good. Tom.
That was a great effort, by the way.
I'm getting there. 21 years of age. Feel like we've known him probably because of the name for 3 or 4 years, right? It was professional all the way back in 2022, I believe, is when he made that flip. So, as a 17-year-old, basically winning on the Alps Tour before going professional. And then in 2023, winning once again there, making his way over to the Challenge Tour, where fought for 2 years until breaking through last year. Winner at that Irish Challenge we mentioned with Clements also there. And then in 2026, 10th at the windy Mauritius Open, 3rd at the Catalonia Championship, and then basically has kind of settled in 3 straight strong events for me. 25th in Italy, 4th at the BMW International. Really wanted to back him at that ISCO, and he played, I would say, okay. I don't really, again, have the highest of expectations for these guys when they come over. And I believe at the halfway point, 36th, final round, 65 for him there, which was round of the day, his last time out. So I think, as we look at him, probably more on the bigger hitting side, is constantly at least over the field in distance. It's just whether can he put it together on this stage. He did in Spain earlier this year. He did in the Challenge Tour and was probably one of the better graduates. So at his age, I still think there's a huge ceiling ahead. So good with settling in with him here for 65-1 right now, priced here in the States.
Yeah, I backed him in the last PGA Tour start that he made. I think he's got more to give. He's still got that kind of youthfulness about him that suggests that we've got more ahead of us, and we shouldn't jump to any conclusions on him. Slow starts even unfair, right? Like, he's been pretty solid. It's just maybe not reached the outlandish expectations that we have of these people. And there's always 4 or 5 a year that we get really excited about, and only 2 or 3 of them can actually deliver. So, looking forward to seeing what the Frenchman can bring. I'm not going to try and butcher his name after you've already done a good job of it.
Thank you. Compliment. I appreciate that. I'm 100-1, but there's a golfer at 80 I'd like to talk about. If you, I was curious on MJ. I forgot what last names. He always gets me. Dafu.
I think it's Duffy, isn't it?
Yeah. So I think he's somebody who this is where I struggle. If this was his first start after the Open Championship, I think I'd be betting him. I liked what he did at the Open. I put in my notes, had a ton of birdies, high upside, really bad putting week, but a good driving and okay iron week. Was fourth, I think, after the first round. Then he goes to the Scottish Challenge. Again, he's first on the ranking, so he doesn't have anything to go down there except, I guess, the Battlefield promotion to get him on the DP World Tour earlier, but misses the cut by a mile. So at 80-1, I felt maybe there could have been a little bit more price into that, but I didn't know your thoughts there.
No, I basically agree with everything you said. I didn't give him too much thought outside of what you just said. Look, obviously a very capable winner. I don't think we can get away from that. I think he's shown it on multiple occasions, on multiple tours, right? I think it's just, I don't know. I have a hard time knowing what he is. Like, is he a good Corn Ferry Tour player if he goes over there and he's nearly won an event, lost in the playoff? Is he a good DP World Tour player? Everything. It's really hard because I just don't think he's ever really settled, and he's 37. like, is he ever going to settle into one tour and be consistent? And the answer is, if he was as good as maybe we hoped he'd be, that he'd probably have settled somewhere by now. So that's my only kind of drawback with him, is I just don't know where to go. I just think there's flashes, and you try and ride it when he's done it. And I think you're right to identify the fact that we're probably getting a little bit of a discount because he's missed that cut last time out. But I didn't give him a too big of a look.
Yeah, that's kind of where I landed. And I mean, I guess, if we're going polar ends too, I mean, I think there's enough to at least have a discussion around Henrik Stenson. Like, do you feel good about him? I mean, this is hard with what you look at, right? I mean, Stenson basically, he played 3 senior events this year and the Open Championship. 14th and 11th. Is that good for him? I think that 11th, he led the field in birdies. But again, first time he had a professional start in 3 months. 2025 was horrific on live, and then made a cut at the Open Championship, where I think at the halfway, I mean, posted 68, 69 that week in between. And then this year at the Open, led the field in approach, was awesome off the tee, could not putt for the life of him. 13th after the first round. I think he probably missed the cut on the number or by 2 strokes, 74 in round 2. So it's just like, what's kind of the deal with Henrik Stenson, right? Do you think he's motivated showing up here and kind of the chip on the shoulder to the DP World Tour? He probably has to play that villain role almost the rest of his career after what he did for the Ryder Cup captaincy. 100-1. I don't know. Is that good enough to take the shot? I don't mind it.
Yeah, there's some conflicting approach numbers from the Open as well. I felt like it was really hard to get confirmation of that. Like, if you look on the PGA Tour and DP World Tour, they don't list it, and then you go on Days Golf, and it's quite different to what we're seeing. Like, that worries me a little bit.
I remember tracking it because I got a buddy who always wants to play Stenson in the Opens, and he couldn't miss an iron. Like, it was dialed in all week long. And I guess all Thursday. I don't remember Friday as well, but Thursday was so good.
I also wonder, because I was very much drawn to him after I saw the numbers, right, on approach. And I do think there's some motivation to get out here and play well again. I always wonder if approach play at an Open Championship is so it's such a different style, right? I think there's you can have a good approach day by just having a lot of nous in tough conditions and knowing where to lay it up and land it so it runs on, rather than flying it 2 foot. And I'm not saying he didn't, I wasn't tracking it, but that's my only concern with him. And you don't have to like a lot at 100-1, but I don't know.
I think there's also the chance that it does get windy and it's exposed and it's weird here, and
then you want
experience as anybody, right?
Then you want but then you're looking at him, Wiesberger.
Yeah.
Probably not side by side, because I think Wiesberger's just been really good, but it's that type of player, right? I mean, you even start going down to I don't know, the likes of Carrera Bello and Fisher and all these people.
Fisher, yeah.
So it's you look at that. So yeah, I mean, look, I think Richie Ramsey, someone of that ilk that can cope with those conditions. So I think we really are wondering how it's going to play, and letting that dictate a lot, to be quite honest with you. And it's funny, Alexander Bjork, retired, comes back and he's listed at the same sort of price as Henrik Stenson. So they really don't know. They just don't know what to do. and I was looking at Jeff Winter for a little bit. He had a couple of good results, but I looked at his kind of form in his home event. I was quite underwhelmed. I know there've been some, top 20s, but 18th miscut, 18th, 65th, 15th, 24th, 27th, 40th. Like, it seems like Jeff Winter plays with a pressure at home that he doesn't really need to play with. Like, I don't think people are as worried about Jeff. I guess probably before the Hoygaard twins come along, there was a lack of depth at the Danish level, so maybe he was the kind of hope for a little bit. But yeah, I'm surprised that he hasn't performed better in this event, to be quite honest with
you. Yeah, that's fair. I there's just a lot. I mean, if we talk about the one home golfer that I think I'm going to bet, he's 105-1, which again probably gets a Danish bump. And I mean, I guess in 2023, I was thinking that Marcus Helikilde was it, man. I mean, not even 23, maybe 22 was like his first year. Was really good in those U.S. events. I think both of those were top 15s. Coming off of the Challenge Tour, where he was a 4-time winner that year. And then he had popped up to this event, finished 25th, finished 12th at the Dutch Open. And then in 22, one of his better events was right here, 8th at the Maiden Himmerland. The next year could have picked up maybe 2 wins and 2 top 4s. 24 played about half of the year. And then we did not see him for basically 18 months with his injury. So 0 expectations of what he would come back and be. First event we see him back was 14th on the Nordic Golf League. Then he missed a cut and basically missed 4 cuts in a row before 14th at the KLM. Missed cut in Italy, a really good opener at the ISCO, and then 15th at the Corrales. I mean, 15th on a PGA Tour event, if you put him alongside of, a pretty decent, event. Blades Brown was 11th, Ventura there, 15th. Ewert 20th, Power, 11th, obviously, Skov Olsen up there. Some of the bigger guys, Bauschu, Rosenmuller, and who we're backing based off of some of those results there. So to me, it just feels like he's probably back from a health standpoint. And you get a home event, you get more of the distance. He was hitting the ball normal pretty much those events. Irons had kind of been pretty decent for most of them, off the tee pretty decent. Just was horrific with the putter until he showed up in Corrales. So if he can putt normal, I think there's a pretty big case for him this week.
Yeah, I think it's funny, isn't it? I think that overall, former like the ISCO and the Corrales is undervalued. And I think we might stray into the other side of maybe overvaluing it slightly because we see all our Deep World Tour players go over there, right? And I think it's, on the raw facts and the raw data is that the strength of field is disappointing, like in that level of field, and the level of competition means that we should expect those players to get there. But I think there's such a nuance to it in the sense, like you spoke about with Todd Clemens, field strength was reasonably weak, right? But the pressure is ramped up because these guys want to get on the PGA Tour, and it's an opportunity to do that. So does he feel more pressure in that versus if he was playing in the Scottish Open, against some of the best? Like, he's not expecting to win the Scottish Open. It's not going to, probably a bad example because I can get on the PGA Tour, but let's say like a top DP World Tour event, let's say Wentworth, whatever. Do you feel as much pressure? I don't know. Like, it's such a life-changing chance that, like, I'm trying to sort of balance that difficulty of playing on the PGA Tour and it being a lower tier event. But long way of saying that. I think we undervalue it as a whole, but we maybe stray in the kind of that means a lot to us. I don't know with Helikilde. Going back to that, like I think it might just be too soon. I feel like it's just get him back in, get a few more events under, and see where he can go next year.
It's fair, totally fair. Okay, what about your selections? Because something just happened with one of mine that we'll have to chat on. So you can go next.
Yeah, so Nikolai von Dellinghausen. I think we've spoken about him a couple of times in recent podcasts. Just looks like there's been some steady form. He finished 70th, but he started quite nicely at the Sadao Open. Then he finished 60th at the KLM, but shot second round 66 there. 10th at the Italian Open, where he was 4th going into the final round. 23rd in Germany. 52nd in Scotland, but he was 6th at halfway. and then 34th at the Corrales. I think that's quite a nice little run of form for a player. You wouldn't necessarily expect to round out the top of those charts, especially in the Corrales. I wouldn't necessarily think people were giving von Dellinghausen much of a chance. Like what he did there. And then when I just look at his form in Denmark as well, he's got an 8th there. He's made 3 of his last 4 cuts in this event. He was 13th at halfway when he finished 45th, shot 64 and 65 that week. So again, although different golf course, I can just see von Dellinghausen settling in, playing good golf. There's a real lack of consistent ball strikes at the moment. I feel like he's hitting his irons and his overall game pretty nicely at the moment. So I thought von Dellinghausen at over 100 to 1, 110 to 1 best price, as someone that's playing consistently and played well in Denmark in the past, I thought that was at least intriguing.
Totally. Yeah, I mean, that round stuck out at the Scottish Open. I think I'm either better when we talked about him in lead up of Corrales there. So, okay, that was your last selection. Did you have any more?
I was going to talk about a couple of others, but we can come back to them. Let's talk about your
well,
pick.
So I don't know if I don't think I can give it out. So I mean, just doing obvious research into long shots or locals in regards to it. So let me make sure I get the name right here. Herman Weeb Sekne, Sekne. Started the show here. I believe he was 450, slashed now down to 250. Most places are 150. Came out as the top value on Data Golf this week, meaning by the time this show comes out tonight, it's going to be everywhere in the 150s, So I think at that point, I'm pretty okay passing. So if I at least talk about it, he's playing on the PGA Tour Americas. He went up to Purdue, was a pretty good golfer in the Big Ten. He's 25 years old, has status on the PGA Tour Americas from a few top 20s last year. Hasn't really, I mean, he finished 5th and 11th when he popped professional in 2024, right after his time at Purdue. This year, again, 3 top 10s. And he popped over to the Nordic Golf League too. Did well there to start. Just, lead in form. If you look at his events, 3 of the last 5 top 20, was 8th going into the final round of the Scottish Challenge. I think, if you still can find 250s plus or a good place bet, I definitely don't mind it. You probably won't be on the official card because of kind of this slash of prices that happens there. Yeah, I mean, it happened within minutes of going live. So just kind of depends on what you can get for him. But he was somebody at least intriguing, or if you are playing DFS, I know smaller events for the DP World Tour prize pools, but maybe worth getting him there near the minimum. So,
yeah, I think that the PGA Tour Americas thing is interesting because there was a player also that caught my eye playing over there as well, and that's Max Eeg or Max Eeg. I don't know how they kind of nail that one, but he is someone that has played this tournament a couple of times now. Finished 19th in 2024 and 11th last year, inside the top 10 two of the 4 rounds last year as well. So had 3 top 10s in his last 6 starts on the PGA Tour Americas. He won the Nordic Golf League in March. I guess it depends how much stock we put into that, but I think everyone's going to start looking at PGA Tour Americas. We've had Brennan's and all these sorts of people, come forward from it, and the PGA Tour University guys going over to there. But Eeg is someone that came up on people's radars a couple of times as a youngster. He's still only 26, and he's inside the top 30, I think, on the PGA. Yeah, he's 30th on the PGA Tour America's standings at the moment. So look, I don't think we need to go crazy about this guy, but for someone that's played well in 2 of his or his only 2 starts in the event, I thought it was at least worth a look.
I know Baroff will give us a shout out for him. He's definitely backed him through the years. We talked about him, I think, making his pro debut maybe at the same time of like Adam Wallen, who I think Adam Wallen he was 2nd last week on the Challenge Tour. But yeah, I respect the PGA Tour Americas a lot, because what ends up happening is 15 of the PGA Tour U guys end up going there. Now we're 5 Korn Ferry Tour events deep since those guys turned pro. you see 2 of those have been won, if not 3 have been. I think 2, Tommy Morrison and then Frankie Harris yesterday, won after graduating quickly. Obviously, Koiven won. So that's 3 PGA Tour U wins in basically 6 weeks, since they've turned pro. So if that field has 10% of those decent guys, which this, Herman was 2 years ago. He was in that class with George Jorgensen. So I think he was 13th or 15th on the ranking, something like that. So it's definitely interesting to get down the list because it's quality golf. My guy Patrick Flavin is up there in regards to top order merit this year. He'll be on the Korn Ferry Tour next year. So I think it's valuable to look at in lead-in of it all.
When you look at the kind of career money leaders on the PGA Tour of America, it's only been rebranded to this for the last 3 years, I think. So it won't include all kind of, because this doesn't include all the stuff that when it was the Canadian Tour, right? I feel like that's been bundled in. But Michael Brennan's number 1, Johnny Keefer number 3, AJ Ewart 17, 3 people that have stood out on the PGA Tour this season. I just think with how well he's playing on there and how well he's played in Denmark, Matt Ziege is of interest.
All right, that probably puts a bow on guys that I have. Anybody else that you felt the need on?
Not really. I just think we talked about it at the start. It's a really tough event to get too excited from a betting perspective. I feel like there's going to be someone from absolutely downtown that's going to kind of stick out at some point. Maybe I find that when I write about this later on, but yeah, no one that kind of stands out to me at the moment.
Perfect. Okay, we'll give a shout out to our audio listeners. You can find us on Daily Fantasy Sports, Picks and Bets, The Mix, Mayo Media Network. Super appreciative of Pat and Jeff and the team and everybody there behind the scenes making this go for us, as we talked about. Stretch Run DP World Tour. So we're going to have some big time events, big time fields over this next 2-3 months. So definitely please feel free to reach out. And you can find Tom on Twitter at TomJacobs93. You can find myself at Hoak DFS. Please ask questions. We're kind of in the stretch run with this here alongside the PGA Tour FedEx playoffs there. Of course, NFL is filling up for Pat and the team there too. So a lot on the horizon. So Tom, if you want to review your betting card for us.
Yeah, so starting off the card, Todd Clements at 45-1, Bernd Wiesberger at 46-1, Nikolai von Dellinghausen at 110-1, and if you can get the 125-1 for Max Eage, I think you should go there as well. Anything that's kind of short of 100, I'm not as interested, but 125-1's noteworthy for sure.
Perfect. All right. So Alejandro Del Rey, 45-1, Caleb Surratt, 45-1. Oyhan Guiamandagai, 65, Henrik Stenson, 100, and then Marcus Helikilda, 105. And then we talked to Herman, Weeb, Sekni. Again, that price is kind of slashed. If you have any stale numbers, definitely, or DFS there is, it's cut from 410 to 150s by the time we started our show. So feel fair there. I'm just kind of leaving it out from the outright perspective. But best of luck, everybody. Again, you're catching us here for the stretch run. So we'll be talking to you all quite a bit here in August and September. So good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, Scott.